Hello, it's Anna Hill here with the Farming Today podcast. A Lords committee warns taps could run dry and says more must be done to ensure better flood and drought management.
We could be looking at a 5 billion litre per day shortfall by 2055.
We'll have more on that a little later. First, all week we're celebrating British flower growing, from intensive tulip production to farm-grown bouquets. One way you can be extremely nosy about how other people are growing their flowers is to join in with the National Garden Scheme and visit gardens locally in July. Maria Floyd is opening up her garden on the edge of Exmoor. It's part of the family's 600-acre farm and includes relics of farming in years gone by. Maria, who's originally from Sweden, showed our reporter Fiona Clampin around.
As you come round this corner, all the stone that you see facing you are all off the farm. The lintel there is my hobbit hole because my husband said, you are 70, so, there's going to come a time when you can't walk up your steps over there.
Right.
So, therefore, we make this ramp here so I can walk up with my simmer frame to get to the top of the garden.
That's very thoughtful of him.
Yeah. These are stone rollers that they used to roll the ground on the fields.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It looks just like a pillar.
Yeah, but now they've got great big ones that they fill with water and have the same effect. But that used to go behind a they only had small tractors then, didn't they? So
yes, not the big ones they have now.
This is chains of an old dung spreader. So we sort of put them as a show a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go up to the next level. And the steps have been made out of digger tracks. So we've tried to recycle as much as possible around here. This is a mill wheel that we got as a table. We've got a pizza oven, and then they've got some tractor seats.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, to sit waiting for their pizza and their drink, I presume.
And we've got up here on our right a milk churn.
Yes. I haven't really decided what I'm going to put in there, but I think it's going to be either a climbing rose that will hang down over him or a clematis, I don't know yet. We've got old drinking troughs that were in the sheds, drilled holes in them, and I planted them up.
And what have you planted in these troughs?
There's been a lot of tulips. I'm trying to keep this sort of red and yellow.
In this garden there's an element of recycling old farm machinery and farm tools, but also a sense that you want to say something about the past and why it's important to show people.
Yes. By seeing these old things, people remember. And I mean, when we had the garden open, there were several farmers that came, and of course they immediately said, oh my word, I used that sort of thing. And you could see how happy they were that somebody had relished that kind of stuff that they had used as a youngster.
Is there also a sense that by creating this garden as part of the farm, that you're encouraging certain pollinators or wildlife?
Yes, very much so. I mean, that's why we've got fruit trees, and I planted a lot of lavender and things for the reason of pollinators. And in the summer last year, we had masses of butterflies here, but they're also needed for our farming. We need them. So by creating a little pocket on the farm where you're encouraging all of that, the farming is benefiting from it.
Maria Floyd there in Brendan Barton in Devon. Farmers have just had some respite from hikes in fuel prices, with the Treasury announcing yesterday a cut on the duty on red diesel from just over 10 pence a litre to 6.5 pence a litre from the 15th of June until the end of 2026. Despite that, the cost of growing our food is still higher than it was before the conflict in the Middle East. British Apples and Pears, which represents top fruit growers, says producing Gala apples has risen by 4.5% since the start of March. Our reporter Theo White went to meet Marion Reagan, the managing director of Hugh Low Farms, which grows strawberries, blackberries and raspberries in Kent, to discuss the challenges.
We're standing in a field of strawberries. These were planted in January. And as you can see, they're grown at sort of shoulder height on what we call tabletops, under tunnels, which protect them from the wind and the rain and from fungal diseases. What you can see here are that we've got a
huge gales just blowing.
I know.
Lucky we're undercover here.
That's why you can see we're in a tunnel. So what you can see is a plant with a number of open flowers, some ripening fruit, and some red fruit further up the row. There's barely a month that passes that we're not doing a sequential planting of strawberries or raspberries or blackberries.
So picking started elsewhere, I understand, but not here yet.
We start under glass, so we have strawberries and blackberries from our glass houses, and then we quite quickly move into these unheated polytunnels.
So speaking of glass houses, they're obviously quite an expensive thing to heat at the best of times. Is this somewhere you've seen the energy costs affect your profit margins?
I think we're quite fortunate in that we had sort of hedged our energy costs in our glass, and we don't try and go particularly early, so we're not putting a lot of heat into glass. With the rising cost of energy, I think it has challenged some glasshouse growers quite severely. We're now moving out of the glasshouse season and into the unheated season, so now it's the effect of energy costs on other inputs. So the big costs that we are looking at, it's the growing costs, the fertiliser, and of the people who we value who come to harvest the crop.
So once you've grown it, you've got to get it to your customers.
Yes.
You've got big customers all over the country. Obviously, logistics become a big thing here. So talk to me about fuel price, and is that something you've been feeling?
Well, yes, fuel price affecting haulage costs and also fuel price affecting packaging. There are things that one can do to make sure that orders are smoothly fulfilled, that you're going to the closest depot. You know, there's lots of work in that logistic piece which can take cost out of the chain. I really firmly believe that British growers are amongst the most innovative, most efficient in the world.
To be honest, you don't sound too pessimistic, so I'll be interested to know your answer to this. But how do you think things are going to go this summer for British berry growers? Are you worried?
I think it's a storm that can be weathered, and I also am eternally optimistic because I am a British berry grower and it's May. And actually I think the crop looks really good, and everything we picked so far has been delicious. And so I'm confident that we will be able to achieve really what is a fantastic value product for consumers.
I'm interested to know whether or not you think the government should be stepping in times like these where energy costs have unexpectedly risen for British farmers.
I think that the specialist glasshouse growers have a good case to make when other sectors have made that case successfully to government. Taken in the round, I think British fruit growing, like British farming, needs the support of the government in terms of a good environment for doing business, for being able to have the confidence to invest in these crops because it's a substantial capital investment. And I think that between growers, government, but also customers, we can create a resilient and healthy sector of soft fruit.
Marion Reagan there talking to Theo White. A DEFRA spokesperson told us fruit and vegetable growers are central to our growth mission, and horticulture will be a priority sector under the new Farming and Food Partnership Board. They said the government had given a record £11.8 billion in funding over this Parliament, alongside extending the seasonal worker visa scheme, while slashing costs and red tape for producers to export to the EU. The taps could run dry. That's the warning from a new report by the House of Lords Select Committee on Environment and Climate Change, published this morning. The report, in response to last year's drought, says water supplies need to be better managed to overcome the contrary challenges of drought and higher rainfall, which it says are both a consequence of climate change. Well, yesterday we heard fears that warmer temperatures could put extra pressure on flood management and food production from the UK's Advisory Committee on Climate Change. This Lords Select Committee report echoes some of those points, but it concentrates on England only and on water supply rather than wider climate issues. I asked the chair, Baroness Sheehan, to give me an overview.
Our report is very clear. We need to have a whole of society approach to this. It's quite a shock to find potentially we could be looking at a 5 billion litre per day shortfall by 2055. One of the things that would help farmers is if the system worked better for them to be able to build their own reservoirs on farm. At the moment, it can be quite tricky. I think they're limited in size to 1 hectare, which just isn't enough.
And farmers are also often dependent on abstraction licences as well. And I know your report looked at that as well.
The Environment Agency will be looking to ask farmers to reduce the amount of water that they take out of the environment. And that's one of the reasons why we really want to try and see how we can hold more water for use for everybody, not just farmers.
And we also know that a lot of farmers are involved in internal drainage boards as well. And you've asked in your recommendation that the drainage boards are given a wider remit.
Yes, we think it makes a lot of sense. At the moment, they can only help in a limited way with water management in the catchment areas that they work in. And we just think working across the region with partners to work together more holistically. I think that's really what we want to do. We want everyone pulling in the same direction, and it doesn't seem to make sense that we have a resource in the IDBs that we are not using fully.
You also mentioned nature-based solutions, which farmers do a lot of work on, don't they? You want that prioritised?
We do. I think it's going to take a long time to build the infrastructure that we need. And before that, I think there are ways of managing our water supply better. And one way is to use our natural environment. For example, planting trees. Now that has been shown to improve soil moisture levels, and that will really help farmers. Using the lie of the land to hold water more effectively will help not just in drought events, but also help with flooding.
Who should pay for all these changes?
I don't think there's necessarily a cost attached to them. Of course, for the reservoirs, they are very cost-intensive projects. But I think nature-based solutions, we have the Environment Agency working with farmers. There are budgets there already. So just improving the way that we communicate with farmers, I don't think that's necessarily very expensive. I think working with householders and with businesses to reduce water use will save money. Water companies working to fix their leakage rates will save water. So I think the money is there. The larger scale reservoirs are projects that the government will be funding.
Baroness Sheehan. That's all from us. I'm Anna Hill. The producer was Rebecca Rooney. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.